Did you ever think about if your Discovery is the best car you ever had? That is not so easy to answer, I think. Because it's not about technology, it's about emotions. Hi, I'm Christian.
And I'm Vera.
And it's Land Rover time. If you want to answer this question to yourself, you have to compare this car with all the previous cars you ever owned in your life. And only if it's still the best car you ever had, it deserves that title. So this is what we want to do in this video. We want to cover all the vehicles, well at least most of them, we ever had, and we compare them to our Land Rover Discovery and let you know what we think. Do the same for yours and see what you get as a result. Now, a comparison to all the previous cars you ever had in your life is kind of unfair because most likely you are wealthier now at this time in your life than you were as you were 18, unless you had your rich dad buying you your first car and it's more powerful than the car you have today. And don't really think so much about the technology. Think about all the adventures you had with your car and think about how much fun they gave you and your friends. This is really what matters. And see if then the Discovery is the best car you ever had. Now, my first car I got when I was 18 years old was a Nissan Micra. A really small car with 45 horsepower. And it was fairly new. It was like 2 or 3 years old. And I was so happy getting this car as a kid. And it, this added mobility in our life was really awesome. Thinking about those times, it does qualify as one of the highlights in my automotive world. It really does. But I would not consider it the best car I ever had, even if it was emotionally one of the best times I ever had in my life. But I did know back then that the car I had was not really cool. It was great. It gave me mobility. But I knew that most of my friends had cooler cars. They had the Volkswagen Passat or BMWs or Volkswagen Golfs. And I had a Nissan Micra. Now, my first really cool car was a Lancia Delta HF Turbo. I bought it in 1991 and it was a 89 plate. 1600 cubic centimeter engine, turbocharged. And anybody who knows Lancia knows Group B Rally. The Lancia Delta Integrale was about one of the most successful rally cars in the Group B Rally ever. It won a lot of races, and the difference between the Integrale and the one I had was that I had only the two-wheel drive version. Now the car was really, really fancy. It had more gauges on the inside than an airplane, and it had really nice seats. It was also the first car I ever had which went faster than 200 kilometers an hour. And having a turbocharged engine in Germany back then was really, really rare. The car was difficult to drive. Vera was not able to drive it because it didn't have any power steering and relatively wide tires. Even so, it was very light. It had only 1,050 kilograms of weight, which also made it possible to accelerate from 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds. So the car was impressive for its time, and it sure gets us up in the scale of the best cars I ever had. I had a lot of trouble with it. I had all sorts of small accidents. I guess the car was a little fast to me and I wasn't that good of a rally driver than I was thinking. And it cost me a lot of money.
So just in case you're wondering, that's not a legal road to drive.
Oh yeah, that's not a legal dirt road here. This is completely illegal, and yeah, we're not really allowed to drive this here. But it's early in the morning, and we know the farmer, so we shouldn't have any problems. Now, a Lancia Delta HF Turbo is certainly a cool car to have, but I don't know if it qualifies under the top cars I ever had. How did you like the Lancia Delta?
Well, it was the first car we took on vacation.
That's right. Yeah.
We had our bikes on and we went camping, so it was good.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
But we had to sell it after 2 years because we wanted to move into a different country. And the next car we really got topped the Lancia Delta by far. I bought a 350 Pontiac Firebird.
Formula.
So that was my first V8, my first 5.7 liter V8 engine. And that car was just really awesome to drive. It was the car you're supposed to have when you're in high school, but in Germany that's not really possible. So I got it when I was, and I think when I turned 22.
Yeah.
That's when I got this car. And we had it for quite some times, and we drove it around Michigan in the US.
Yes.
It was an awesome car. And I had just one basic concept, and that was, if I'm sitting in this car, the engine is running, because I like that V8 so much. And putting a V8 anyhow into this comparison is really not very fair, because a V8 engine just gets you a smile in your face, doesn't it? I mean, even you like that engine.
That engine.
Yeah, you can have a completely worn out and wrecked car and all rusty with bad interior and everything bad on it, but if it got a 5.7 liter V8 engine in it, it really makes up for everything. It gets you a smile on your face. So this gets our 350 Formula right up there. It broke down on us one time really significantly. It sheared off the flywheel, so basically the part which connects the crankshaft to the torque converter, and we had to take the engine out and put a new torque converter in, a new flywheel, and we also did some other repairs on it to get it back on the road. And it was the first major repair I ever did on a car. But it was really easy to fix, like any US V8 engine out of that time. At one point, I got a new car and I gave the Firebird to Vera. And it was then her car, and she drove it for quite some time.
Like 2 weeks.
What? You mean after 2 weeks it already... What happened after 2 weeks?
I got hit by a bus.
I don't remember it being only 2 weeks.
No, it was really shortly after
all that work we put in?
We put in, yes.
Okay.
It was really, really bad.
Oh.
You know?
And then the car was wrecked anyhow.
Yes.
So, but the reason I gave it to Vera was I got our first SUV, and that was a Jeep Cherokee 2-door.
An XJ. Was it the XJ?
And it had the 4-liter inline 6 in it.
Yes.
And
no air conditioning.
It was our first 4-wheel drive vehicle ever, and it enabled us to do completely different things. With this car, I want to say, we did our first real overland trips.
Yes,
we took it out west several times in the United States. We took it through Nevada and into California. We went up to Washington. We went to Banff. Did we go? Yeah, we went to Banff all the way.
I have that picture in the living room.
Yes. So we took this across the United States several times, and those trips were really awesome. We had like a roof box, and we had our tent and sleeping bag. The vehicle was technically not a good vehicle. It wasn't in a good condition for the miles it had. It was rusty. I guess like every car in Michigan is very rusty after a couple of years. And it certainly wasn't the best quality car we ever had, but it was an SUV, and it was just awesome to go on minor off-roading trips in the stock condition it was in, and certainly great to travel across the United States.
Yeah.
We were just missing the air conditioning.
We didn't know.
So anyway, the Jeep Cherokee we had there was a great vehicle to own, and we did some great things with it, but I kind of knew that it wasn't a very good vehicle. And
Sun.
oh wow, we should
Sometimes they are rocks, you know.
you should take a picture right here. Oh, look at that. You got your camera right there. I think it's quite a sight. So we learned a lot driving around with that Jeep Cherokee, and our trips were really awesome and great, and I want to say those were the first overlanding trips. But the car was technically just not very good. It was basically equipped, it had no air conditioning, and it broke down quite a lot because I bought it with too many miles as a Michigan vehicle. It was rusty, and we sold it after, I want to say, only 2 years, and we spent quite a bit more money and we bought a Grand Cherokee. The Grand Cherokee back then was my absolute dream car, and it is high up in my scale of the best cars I ever had. It was the first SUV with a V8 we ever had, and the car was already very luxurious, especially compared to the to the Cherokee and compared to the Firebird.
And it was much larger.
It was larger, it was spacey. So on overlanding trips where we didn't want to set our ground tent
In bear country.
in bear country, it was much easier to sleep inside the car. And we got ourselves better camping gear, and we extended our trips. We didn't extend them to be longer, but we covered a bigger area. And because we already knew most of the big national parks back then, we kind of went more to the smaller national parks, which were not as populated and not as known. In the national forests, we took our mountain bikes along, and we anyway did a lot more mountain biking. So it was a great time with that vehicle. The vehicle was certainly very reliable. I think the Grand Cherokee actually never broke down, not a single time.
Well, in the United States, there's a Napa store in every little town. So it doesn't matter if your car breaks down or not. You can fix it on the road. And we had the red toolbox, the one which we take even today still with us on every trip we do.
But the Grand Cherokee was really very reliable, and there was almost never any problem when we took it on long overlanding trips in the States. And that car we also took into Jasper and Banff and Vancouver Island, and we took it to the Olympic, what was that called? Olympic National Park, and down the West Coast. We drove through Utah. We spent a lot of time in Moab, not because of overlanding
and off-roading.
That was really not our goal back then, and also the car was quite stock, but we did a lot of mountain biking back then in Moab. That's when this became really fancy, this town, and it was in the early mountain biking days. It was a great time, and this car, the Grand Cherokee, is certainly high up there in the best cars we ever owned. We sold it in January 2003, and we planned on a longer trip out west in the United States.
6 weeks, yes.
It was like a 6-week trip, and I made more money at work, so we wanted to buy a just bigger vehicle. And my absolute dream vehicle back then was the Dodge Durango. I think that car came out in 2001, and we bought it in 2003. So it was quite a new vehicle to own. And it had a 5.9 liter V8, the Magnum V8, which was, from the power and gas consumption, probably the worst engine I ever had. But like I said earlier, it gets a smile on your face. That engine, just that rumble, and that feeling in that quite heavy truck was awesome. And the car was new, so we didn't really have any trouble with it. And it was well equipped, I want to say, but it was kind of cheap made. We realized this relatively quickly, that a big car is not everything. The car was just very plastic-like looking on the inside, even so it was a one from the higher up range, and the engine had definitely the worst gas mileage ever. That car took as much gas as if you would just take a barrel of gasoline, put it on the back of your pickup and drill a 1/4-inch hole in it and just let the gasoline run out. That was the equivalent fuel consumption of that Dodge Durango engine. Remember?
My big truck.
When we took it off-roading, it did less than 5 miles a gallon. So it really didn't give us any chance to go far into the backcountry in Moab when it was on sandy tracks. The gas mileage was so horrible that you always had to stick around a gas station within reach of like 80 or 90 miles because it was too risky. Thank you. And on regular highway driving, and I mean going slow with like 65 miles an hour, the car still did not get much better than 13.5 miles a gallon. Awesome memories, awesome trips, but technically a pretty poor car. That's my rating anyhow. The next car, we moved back to Germany after several years, and the next car we bought was an Audi A6. It was the long version, and it was quite loaded and also quite new. Actually, it was the same year as the Dodge Durango, and that car was really one of the higher end cars you could buy back then for this kind of money. I mean, an A6 is one of the best Audis there is. You can only get an A8, which is fancier than an A6. It was well equipped, but the car had only a 2.6 liter 6-cylinder engine in it with like 170 horse. It was, right after that Durango, the worst engine I ever had. It actually took more than 13 liters at 100 kilometers, and even so it was really fancy equipped with leather seats and everything in the long version, and the car just wasn't any fun to drive. It was the quattro version, the 4-wheel drive, and it just did not have enough horsepower to support that vehicle. Because of that reason, because of the gas consumption and because it was lacking horsepower, we only drove it for, I want to say, 2 years, and then we sold it. We also did a few overland trips down to the Alps with our mountain bikes on top, but really not that much. We took it to Norway once, driving it to Norway. That was an awesome trip. The car was good to cover long distances very comfortably, but it was no good to really utilize the 4-wheel drive or going up and down mountain passes.
Yeah.
Not a good vehicle. The next car we bought, I wanted to get something what takes less gas because we bought a house and we didn't have that much money to spend. And I also didn't want to have any car trouble. So we bought a C-Klasse Mercedes, also the T model, the long version, with a 2.2 liter diesel engine, and that engine was certainly powerful enough for the car. The car went way faster than the Audi on the Autobahn, and it had the better suspension. It wasn't as well equipped. It just had a little bit more class, in my opinion, than the Audi A6. And we actually had this car for stunning 9 years. We bought it with like 24,000 kilometers, so fairly new, 1 year old. And we sold it with 180 after 9 years. That was an awesome vehicle. And I also want to say, technically, it's the best vehicle we ever owned.
Yes.
That car did not break down. It had an automatic transmission. It had this perfect diesel engine with a lot of torque. And it took only 7 or 8 liters of diesel. What an awesome car.
Yes.
It was just not exciting.
Yes.
Okay.
It was like really boring.
It was a boring car, even if it was sporty to drive, and it was possible to be the fastest one on curvy roads, but it was not exciting in a way a Land Rover Discovery is. It wasn't an overland vehicle. It really didn't get you to go out and drive on long trips. It was a car to get from A to B without trouble and quickly and in style. But just not up there in the scale of the best cars we ever had. During that time, remember when we had the C-Klasse, we bought you a new car, and that was our Land Rover Freelander. And I bought it with 70,000 kilometers without Vera knowing. She was actually on vacation, and I bought the car and I gave it as a gift to her. During that vacation, I showed her a picture of it and said, this is at home in our driveway. So that car was actually the car we used to go on overlanding trips and on vacations with our small kids back then. Remember?
Yeah.
We always took the Freelander, which was a cheap car compared to the C-Klasse, and it was not much bigger. So we loaded that car up with our roof box and everything and our
4
tent.
bikes now.
And 4 bikes, the 2 kids' bikes and our 2 mountain bikes, and we took that one down to the Alps at least 3 or 4 times over the years we had it. So that car was exciting. It got us onto long trips, and it was great. It was just an awesome vehicle. It broke down during those trips, remember? We had the turbocharger hose fail. We had the starter motor jam up. So we had to repair this car during our trips, and it was technically certainly not an advanced car.
But we had our red toolbox, so it was
We had our red toolbox,
What
so
did
that
you do
was
now?
great.
It's 4 degrees.
The temperature went below 4 degrees. And we still have it today. And it's, I think, doesn't it top our Mercedes by now in years?
No, I think we are even now. 9
We're now
years,
even.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
220, yeah.
that car is right up there with the best cars we ever had. And because it was so successful for us and we liked it so much, that's when I started to look for a Discovery. I don't know how I got the idea to buy a Discovery, but at one point I guess I was jealous of Vera having a SUV and I wanted one too.
But
So
you didn't want the Freelander.
Yeah, I didn't want to have the Freelander. So I sold the C-Klasse and I bought the Discovery. We put the most effort ever into modifying and repairing the car. And I want to say we have a better relation to it. The other cars were also overland vehicles and we liked them in the States, but we were not emotionally connected to them. As with the Discovery, that's different. I don't think we're ever going to sell this vehicle until it really gets separated from us by the German TÜV.
Which we have in 2 weeks.
Anyway, those are the vehicles we had, and if we got a rate now, is the Discovery the best vehicle we ever had? I think it is a clear yes. We are emotionally connected to it. We fix it if it's broke.
Yeah.
We take good care of it, and we do not plan on selling it.
Yeah.
All those factors, not technology, really makes it the best car we ever owned. It really is. So that's our summary of, is the Discovery the best car we ever had? do this comparison for yourself and think about if that's why you drive a Discovery. And maybe you are like we, and we certainly do not plan on selling this car. We're gonna keep it, and we're gonna do as many trips as we can.
I hope so.
It completes our review. I hope this was an interesting story for you, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. See you next week.
So he's inspecting now the car based on a checklist. This is every 2 years in Germany. I hope we're gonna pass it. Let's tell Vera. See what she says. Okay, I'm not sure if we can blame you for the second problem.
What's that?
Nothing good.
Really?
Yes.
Like what?
Same as on the Freelander.